you got the very toxic third wave feminist, and then you have like Andrew Tate, and they're both really sides of the same coin. They're using men and women as just material objects for their pleasure. And so we need to find something closer in the middle that actually heals society.
Mr. Kyle Orthodox, welcome on board for an interview. Looking forward to having a chat with you.
I know, I'm really excited about this. I've been looking at your channel and you've had a lot of really great guests on, and I like a lot what you talk about. So really excited for this.
Well, same to you. Yeah. So I've been taking a bit of a step more into what one could call the OrthoSphere and the Ortho whatever environment. And I don't know if you're willing to accept this, but it seems to me like you're pretty much like the epicenter of the kind of meme-filled Ortho world, and everything that's happening there. And so I thought, well, yeah, that sounds like a great guy to have a chat with. And I enjoyed watching your videos. The more I watch, the more it's hard to actually stop watching them as well. So
Yeah.
I've really got a lot of value out of it, not just from entertainment value, but also from a lot of good background, solid information, well-researched material,
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't identify as like an ortho bro, but you know, that's just a term that people call us. I think it's kind of funny and we own it. But yeah, and also I don't think we have a name like the OrthoSphere, but I think that is a very accurate term to describe this great online Orthodox community that we have. And what I think is so great about this online Orthodox community is that it transitions really well into like the actual parish life. Like I always tell people to actually go to a church and like do this in real life. Don't just watch a bunch of videos and stay at home and be chronically online. I actually think people, once they get all the true information, they should be not online that much. They should be, you know, focusing on their prayer life. They should be focusing on growing their actual church. And so it's really great. And I feel like the online community is very interconnected. All these different creators that we have, from Jay Dyer to David Erhan. We have really great clergy presence online too, with Father Peter Heers, Father Josiah Trenham, Living Orthodox, Father Michael, Father Spredon Bailey from the UK. I mean, it's a global phenomenon that's going on. I mean, Orthodox Meme Squad, he's in Europe too. We have people in Australia like Steadfast Godcast, Patristics. I mean, there is really a channel that I think can reach everyone. Like Jonathan Bijot has done a great job, especially with his connection with Jordan Peterson, of just reaching a broader audience. And the way he speaks, it's like no one else is talking like this. Like we have something so great in this online Orthodox community. And we have just an extreme amount of depth. And we have lots, I mean, we have everything. We have people who you can go and debate with on the Crucible. We have Andrew Wilson and Made by Jim Bob and, you know, Jay and Church of Eternal Logos and David Patrick Harry. I mean, we have something so great to offer for everyone. Even for women too. We have Jasmine Theodora and Rachel Wilson. I mean, these are just a few of the many great creators that we have. And that's why I made this video called Best Orthodox Christian YouTubers, is I want to spread awareness of these great channels that we have online. I mean, because a lot of people, they just, you know, the algorithm isn't the most friendly to us, but you know, once they find these great creators, you realize that we have this gem. And I guess the only bad thing about the Orthodox creators is our videos tend to be super long, and most people's attention spans aren't that long. And so when I found these great creators, I'm like, wow, this is so good. Like they deserve way more views. Like this is such good information. And so I feel I've been, you know, blessed. I've been able to like kind of fill this niche of shorter form content, kind of really straight to the point, like listening to hours of Jay Dyer and David Erhan and Ubi Petrus and all these different people. I can bring their arguments just very easy to understand, straight to the point. And I want to point to them too, because they deserve all the credit, because, you know, they're the ones who did all the research. But yeah, overall, I feel like we have such an amazing online community. It's the most in-depth community. It's the true faith. It transitions well, and it's so welcoming. Like me converting to Orthodox Christianity, I watched all these people, and then now that I started making videos, you know, they're just so willing to collab with new channels and share their videos. So yeah, it's just been a really great experience for me. And I think anyone who finds this, it's really a gold mine of all these great online Orthodox creators.
Yeah, I certainly appreciated, Kyle, that so the first email I got from you in your signature, it's there, how, find a church, and then it's a link to finding a local church,
Yeah,
a local
yeah.
parish. And that's what I just hear everywhere I go. It's like, of course, yes, there is a risk of people only staying online and listening to a lot of
Mm-hmm.
information and filling their heads and staying at home and not getting out there. But what I
Yeah,
continuously hear from all of the people, I think you're more into all of the different online channels than I am, but I keep on hearing all the time repeated, like, go and ask a local priest. This is what you hear also if you go into like
exactly.
various, social media and people ask questions about like, what about this situation? What about that situation? Then someone's always going to say like, go and find, ask your local priest. That's where you get this information from. So
Exactly.
one thing I'd like to just spend a little more time on, Carl, going into a little bit. You said you don't see yourself as an ortho bro. And
Yeah.
I just want to try and understand this topic, or the term a little bit better. What do you think is meant by it?
Yeah.
Um, I can mention two things. The first thing is that actually just this week I was invited to a Telegram group with a bunch of Danish Orthodox guys who are just spontaneously. There's not a lot of Orthodox converts in Denmark, but these are all Orthodox
Yeah.
converts, and the group is called Ortho Bros.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh well, great, that's fantastic. It sounds like a super thing. So these are obviously some guys who, I don't know if it might be playful or something like that, but that's the
Yeah.
name of the group. And then I've also spent a long time thinking about the word patriarchy, and how the word, a word which signifies something incredibly good. It's really the rule of the Father, or the governance of the Father, as in we have
Mm-hmm.
a heavenly Father in heaven. It's something that's really beautiful and good, and that's been in mainstream culture being turned into, signifying the root of all evil. And for people
Yeah.
who don't have any knowledge of, can be incredibly good and kind and compassionate people, they don't have a knowledge and understanding of what Christianity is, then they just buy into this word patriarchy means everything evil. And so when I hear
Mm-hmm.
ortho bros, I see orthodox and brother. I think, wow,
Yeah.
those are two of the most beautiful things in the world. The verse from Psalms about, what is it? How sweet it is for brothers to dwell together in unity.
Yeah.
And what better unity there could be than than orthodoxy. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just think like the fact that ortho bro has become a little bit of like a negative word, that stinks a little bit to high heaven for me as something similar.
Yeah. I wonder if it really is a bad word when most people hear it, because I think there is a good way when you hear ortho bro, it's something playful. It's like, it is like a brotherhood. There's a lot of young men especially converting to Orthodox Christianity, because it's definitely the most kind of masculine version of Christianity, because it is true Christianity. But there also is some bad things when people say ortho bro. When I think of the bad things of ortho bro, and this is what I wanted to kind of talk about, the dangers and pitfalls that you don't want to fall into, is being chronically online and just endlessly wanting to debate without charity. Not that debate is bad. Debate is actually really good, but we want to do it with love and charity. And I fell into this in the past with just being, too memey, too polemical. And so I'm trying to definitely find a balance, because I think memes are a great way to communicate information. They're really funny. But we don't want to, it's like being right is important, but you also want to, the Christian way of being right, with love and charity, where they actually, you correct them and you bring them the truth, but you don't want to like destroy your relationship because you're just trying to own them super hard, especially on Twitter. I think people don't, like, online people act differently than they do in person. Even me, and I've been trying to work on that, is to be more consistent of how I am offline versus online, because I'm really just chill and happy offline, but sometimes I'm a little bit too like polemical or over the top in some of my past YouTube videos. So I think just don't spend all your time like debating on Twitter or debating these things. Like, spend more time praying. Um, still, bring people the truth, but just, it also matters like how you say it and the right way. And so I think that's really important. But honestly, I'm a really big proponent of not being online. Like, even though we have this great community, I actually used to have this channel called Christian Simplicity, where I talked a lot about like minimalism and, getting off social media. And I really think that's how people should live, is like, don't have Instagram, don't have TikTok or Twitter. YouTube is the one that I think is worth having because there's a lot of educational information on it. And I think you should do that in moderation. But I think really people should not be chronically online. So I think the negative connotation of the word ortho bro is someone who's chronically online, and maybe they know all this like true information, but they're like losing the spirit of Christianity because they just want to like bat people over the head, when it also matters the way that you do it. So I think finding that balance, hopefully we can reclaim the word ortho bro, because sadly masculinity is under attack in a lot of ways. Like, I mean, everything they try and subvert, like just like guys being together, they have to make it like sexual, or they just want to subvert any sense of like brotherhood or friendship. And I think that's really important, is that we are a good testimony to that, of like real brotherhood, real, like the church should be our family, and that should be in person. Like, it's so important that that's in person and not spending too much time online, because I think spending too much time online can lead us into doom scrolling and despair. But it's like, if you're just like spending time like growing your local church, maybe starting a book club, joining the church board, going to Vespers and Divine Liturgy, and not on Twitter, like, you're gonna have more spiritual growth. It's gonna be good for you. You're gonna positively affect the people around you. I think Saint Seraphim of Sarov said, acquire a peaceful spirit and thousands around you will be saved. So I think that's what people should focus on.
Yeah. I mean, so my full-time job that I actually do, and this is what Manifest is about, is we run a network of men's groups, and these groups support each guy to create a personal vision for what he wants to achieve in his life. What are his, and then, sets concrete goals, and like, okay, in the next quarter, the next 3 months, I want to do this and this and this. And then working on daily habits. And so these groups, they meet once a week and they talk about their progress. But then the members of the group, each guy has to call up a buddy every single day at a fixed time. And you check in, what's the most important thing that I need to do today? And am I doing it? And this is something that, I started doing this because after many years as a kind of like, exploring all kinds of other different stuff away from Christianity, then I realized like I needed this stuff. So, talking about not being online, I've actually just from the beginning of this year, now this is my phone because I just found like I'm actually not able to master my attention and direct it purposefully all the time unless I actually make some pretty hard structures for myself. And so I've needed support of other people, and I've also needed, a family, and I've needed to have like, specific, structural decisions that, if I just have that phone in my pocket all the time, then I go sitting on the toilet. Next thing I know is I'm sitting there scrolling on my phone, looking at some completely useless stuff, right? And so I think that there's a real value in the wake-up call that comes from this information that's being put out in the Orthodox sphere. And I think, when we started talking about Jay Dyer for the first time, I'd actually never really seen his material. I'd never got into that. I came through the kind of Jordan Peterson, Jonathan Peugeot route much more.
Nice.
And so I didn't really know what it was all about, but then I started looking at Jay Dyer, and I was just like, well, this guy's just like a guy who's really good at debating, and he has happened to, he's also a comedian and doing all kinds of other stuff, but he happens to be really good at debating, and he's an Orthodox Christian, and so he debates this ontological argument. He's really strong with it, it's like, so, and that's what he does, and he does it well, and he gets a lot of attention from it, and people become aware of it. If it wasn't for that, then there's this whole segment of people who would never hear about Orthodoxy. So I think people are like expecting Jay Dyer, because he's talking about the Orthodox faith, he has to be like perfectly living a saint-like life at the same time as well. And that's obviously not what he's doing, right? Like, I mean, I don't know him personally. I don't know how well you know him, but it seems to me he's just like a guy who like, likes playing basketball and talking about stuff. And I haven't looked into his conspiracy theory stuff like that. That's like a bridge. That seems to me as well. Like, okay, I think that there can be also a draw for guys to like go a lot into a whole lot of conspiracy theories. And I really prefer the positive direction of like a vision for society and paradise, the kingdom of heaven, and how we're stepping into that.
Yeah. I think that's so great that you have, like, that's what we should all want to do, is hold especially other guys accountable, because especially young men need that, because I feel like there's a lot of wandering. There's not a lot of structure. And I think especially young men need that. structure. And that's what the church gives them. It's like, a spiritual boot camp, and you're going to go through it with other guys. You should be going through it with your priest, and you should be, growing closer to Christ, and you should be growing closer to each other. And hopefully you should all be working towards your salvation, but it can also be working towards other goals, like getting physically fit. One of my good friends actually made a video on how the gym prepared him for the Orthodox spiritual life. Like, it's like going to the gym, you have to, go there consistently. You have to have that structure, and you can't be too rigorous about it too. Like, you want to go to the gym, make it a permanent lifestyle change, just like your prayer life. Like, you want to make sure that this is going to define you for the rest of your life. And maybe some days you don't feel like going to the gym, but you should still go, even if it's for a little bit. And your prayer life is the same way. Some days you're not going to be able to pray as long, but just praying consistently. Like, guys need that structure, and they need to keep each other accountable, because no one really feels bad for you. No one's looking out for you. So you should be looking out for other guys. I mean, you should be looking out for everyone, but especially other guys, other new people in the church.
So what are you hearing from your audience, and from people you're hearing from, Kyle? Do you get the sense that guys are watching your videos? Obviously, then they're attracted to go look at. Obviously, they're going to at some point going to look at a church, a local parish, if they find it. Are they finding a accessible parish in their own language, which they're able to actually engage with, and where there's a decent local catechesis that's offered to them? Is that what's happening? Because
yeah. Yeah. For the most part, that's what I've been hearing. I get so many messages on Instagram and email, and I love being able to have that relationship with my audience on email and Twitter and Instagram. But they reach out to me and they're like, wow, this is so amazing. Like, going to the Divine Liturgy, my priest is so great. I've met lots of other young people too. And even at my own church, I've met people who came because of my videos. And that's like really interesting to see that, like, this online community that we have is actually making a real difference, and that they're able to find an actual community, and they're just so thankful. And I hope that they can just keep passing it forward. Not everyone needs to make videos, but you can just be a good example in your life, and maybe your family will get interested. Maybe your friends will get interested. And again, don't like force it down their throat, but it's just when they see the positive changes in you, and you share your faith in a positive way, then they're going to be more interested. So I think Orthodoxy is, like, obviously the best thing that a person could have, like, to have that, the true church, the true teachings, all these great writings. I mean, just the depth of Orthodoxy is unlike anything. Like, you're not going to find it in Protestantism or Catholicism. I think of it, a lot of the people who've converted to Orthodoxy now were like early adopters, because I think this is the long-term trend. Is Protestantism is kind of imploding. The Catholic Church is imploding. People need structure and order. And like, if you're going to devote your life to something, you don't want something that's constantly changing and not consistent. And Orthodoxy has been the rock. I mean, the Holy Spirit, guides the church. We have, an amazing divine liturgy. We have, the true teachings. We still make amazing saints even in modern times, and there's many saints living today, but it's just so great. I think everyone is going to eventually find that bedrock, and as more people convert, especially in Europe, you're going to get more convert priests, and then I think there will be a huge wave that's coming, and we're just at the very, very, very early start. But
I definitely have the idea, like, there's like 5 to 10% of the population here, if they knew what Orthodoxy was, they would become Orthodox, but it's going to take some time to get that word out. And there's so many misunderstandings out there. But Kyle, I'd like to talk a little bit more about just this whole orthosphere, if we can use that term, actually. Like, so when I told my wife, like, oh, I'm going to be talking to this guy called Orthodox Kyle. Do you know who he is? And she was like, no, I haven't heard of Orthodox Kyle. So I said, well, it's basically like this pretty polemical guy who makes like these really argumentative videos, and there's a lot of memes in them, and there's a lot of like sound effects and stuff like that. And she was like, well, that sounds really non-serious. And so I said, well, I don't think so. Like, I think it's really like you're meeting people where they are. And the fact is that there's so many people that their life is just immersed in this kind of stuff. And so it's just so vital that Orthodox Christianity is also accessible out there. And they're looking for the good arguments, and we do have the good arguments. So when I, in my personal search came to looking, okay, Protestantism looks a little iffy, so let's look at these old churches, Orthodoxy and Catholicism. And then
Yeah.
it just became clear so fast, like
Yeah.
where the meat was, right, as well. And so I think, it's important to be putting that case out there and making
Yeah.
it strongly, because there's a lot of
Yeah.
misinformation out there as well.
Yeah. And I think of my channel as a pipeline to the higher level content. I don't want people just, I don't have all the answers. I'm still very new. That's why I tell them, an actual church, talk to a priest. They've lived it. They've gone to seminary. If you have the I want to do my best to, and I have a lot of answers to a lot of very common questions because people ask them so much. But yeah, I want to point them to the actual parish so they can, grow closer there. And then also these other channels, because these other Orthodox channels deserve way more views than they have. Like the amount of research that Jay does, it's just it's crazy. The amount of research that David Patrick Harry does on Church of Eternal Logos, it's like this is like super super high level content, but it's just I want us to all grow together. And so that's what and then I started my channel, the OrthoCast, which I wanted to start collecting like an archive of why people are converting to Orthodox Christianity. And that's been really great because now I get to collab with so many people, like YouTubers, and then also just people that I meet in real life or online, because there's so many people that I meet at church and I'm like, you are so amazing. You're so knowledgeable, but they're just busy with life. And it's just, if I can just put the spotlight on them and be like, there's just so many amazing people in Orthodoxy online and offline. And a lot of the great people like offline, they deserve, like, it's just crazy how much knowledge and like what they know in their story. And so being able to share that too is, I want to make my channel just outreach to, I mean, a lot of it is outreach to Zoomers and young men, but I want to expose them to these great resources.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So Kyle, I mean, be good to hear your views as well on, I run this channel on masculinity and manhood. And that's something that is under attack these days and vanishing. And I think it can sometimes also cause a pendulum to swing too far the other way.
Yes.
In that sometimes then we kind of go for like very superficial markers of manhood. And so you see that in kind of like the gangster mentality or something like that of, extreme ultra, machoism or something like that.
Yeah.
What's your approach? Where do you think you find a good thing? I mean, obviously we can say like, okay, we just need Jesus Christ as the perfect model, but if we kind of have to come like some levels down from there, like how do you how do you adjust like your approach to conversations online and offline perhaps?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And this is something that I think we all face as young men. And we see this a lot online. At least this is what happened with me, is that you're basically forced this toxic femininity and it tries to destroy all masculinity. And that just makes a lot of reactionaries of people like you were talking about on the exact opposite of the pendulum. And making men like actually toxically masculine. Sadly, that term is just so overused and weaponized, but it's like the amount of attack on masculinity is creating actual problems and creating actual toxic masculinity as a reaction to toxic femininity. And so I've become aware of that I was too reactionary on these ideas, and this isn't actually what I want. This isn't what the Bible teaches. And so I've been trying to find a balance of you don't want to just be reacting to your enemy. You want to have something that's actually solid and true. And even your enemies are going to make some correct points, and we have to acknowledge that. So I think and this is something that's currently we're seeing happen with something like the manosphere. That was the video that you saw from me where I tried to kind of communicate this. Well, the manosphere will bring up things that are true. Like there are a lot of inequalities for men in society, and there's reasons like divorce isn't fair to men. All these different, the men's rights groups, they do have points. But we also need to listen to the other side to make sure we are fostering a healthy society, because that's honestly what the devil wants. Is the devil wants us to just be in our corners, like you got the very toxic third wave feminist, and then you have like Andrew Tate, and they're both really sides of the same coin. They're using men and women as just material objects for their pleasure. And so we need to find something closer in the middle that can actually heal society, because we don't want to just own the other person, because we have to like live with these people. We want to actually bring people closer together and not have such a polarized. You don't want the sexes polarized, because they should be coming together to have a family. So I think it all comes with, you need to listen to everyone. I think you should listen to manosphere people, see what they're saying. Listen to the toxic feminists, see what they're saying. I think both sides at different points are, irrational. And so we need to come closer together, and actually the goal should be marriage and, the proper roles for men and women. So this is something that we can do by reading the lives of the saints. There's lots of books on married saints, of what the role of men as the father are, women as a mother. But it's really difficult, because we don't want to fall into black and white thinking, because it's just so incredibly nuanced, and it's really difficult to do that, because everything, like, we just want to pick a side, but we need to have a nuanced position that and see, okay, you're right on this, oh, you're wrong on this. And we just don't want to fall into being a hyper reactionary, because it's going to make us very sad and black pilled in the world. And also it's just not it's not Christian. We need to find that peace in Christ. So
so I actually just did an interview with the General Secretary of the Danish Men's Council, or Men's Rights Council. And there was just recently a documentary on their group in Danish television. And what I watched these guys, and it's exactly what you're talking about. Like, they're very reactionary. They're pointing out some terrible injustices in the world. But they're not getting a lot of traction at all. And they're getting more sympathy and traction today than they are. I think, the approaching of war around the boundaries of Europe, or even inside Europe, is making people a little bit more attentive to, like, okay, maybe we need these guys. We can't just treat men like dirt, because we need them to go and fight for us a little bit sometimes again, maybe soon. But what I think you were touching on, which makes a lot of sense to me, and actually this is something that really came through to me in a personal way in my conversation with Jay Dyer that I had just 2 weeks ago, or no, just before Christmas. This is the fact that it's not so much the points of the conversation, what's being said between feminists and men's rights activists. It's the shared foundational assumptions, which is often materialist foundational assumptions built on an understanding of a, kind of evolutionistic materialist worldview. And so Jay actually said to me, he said, like, at the end of the day, it comes down to, do you actually believe in the Genesis account of the creation of the world by God? Or, do you just see it as some kind of like vague, poetic story-like thing or something like that? And personally, I've perhaps even as an Orthodox Christian, I've tended a little bit towards the kind of, Jonathan Peugeot symbolic. I've also read Language of Creation, found incredibly valuable and useful to. Do you know Mathieu Peugeot's Language of Creation?
I haven't seen that.
Okay, it's a great book. He's not Orthodox himself, but it really looks at like the symbolism of the Genesis account, and has some incredibly beautiful, inspiring points in it as well. But it reminded me when Jay said that to me, that I had read Father Seraphim Rose's work. I think it was it was on the Genesis, creation, and early man. I hadn't read the whole book, but I'd really been challenged by some of that stuff, where he just like repeatedly like hammers at home, like all of the church fathers, they believe the story literally. And as Christians, we needed to believe the story literally as well. And it's kind of scary to admit that publicly, and to also say it in front of like non-Christians as well. Like, you can get shamed. You can get like, basically
Yep.
like laughed at or something like that.
Hmm.
If you say like, well, actually, I think that So anyway, so I've just been rereading that this weekend now as well, and I see like it's really that I can't heal the rift between men and women. I can't heal society, but what I
Yeah.
can heal is a broken perception of reality inside my own soul. And when I do
Yeah.
that, then these things start getting fixed, right?
Exactly. That's the perfect way to put it. Is it really starts in the inside that we need to have that radical change. We need to heal our soul, which we can only do with, the divine physician, Christ. But yeah, and Genesis is symbolic, but it also is literal. That is a great book by Father Seraphim Rose. And I've actually talked about that a lot on my channel, is the literalism and like the deep theological meanings of this. And the thing is that when you actually bring it up in front of other people, if you are well researched and you just like kind of questioning their foundation is like, okay, why do they believe in these certain things? Like the universe is billions of years old. And then you start questioning, okay, the dating methods that they use to do that. And they realize that their foundation isn't as solid as they think it is. And the fossil record and all these things, that's a whole another stream. But it's been really interesting for me, because I wasn't raised with any religion. I was taught uh, neo-Darwinism and everything in school, and so to actually be exposed to the creationist position, it took a while for me, and it took actually a philosophy of science class for me to actually start to question and look deeper into these things, and to study things like the problem of induction. And it's been very interesting for me to learn more about that. And I feel like we are really creationists, because either way the universe was created, if they believe it's Big Bang or God. So we're all creationists. It's just we're talking about the age of these things. So yeah, that's been very big. That's a big paradigm shift for a lot of people. But you're totally right, is with the feminist and with the manosphere, like their foundation is materialism, and we need to put everything in its proper context, be in the proper paradigm, which is Orthodox Christianity. So
Yeah. So that was the point that really struck me reading just in the introduction of that book by
yeah.
Father Seraphim Rose, was that evolutionary theory is actually not science, it's philosophy, it's metaphysics,
Yeah, it
because
is.
it's the pre-assumption that the cause of the human race, of the species, different species, is found in the material world, and
Yeah.
you've pre-excluded any spiritual explanation. And so
Yeah.
that flies obviously directly in the face of, and then so once you've assumed that already, then you go out and you look for evidence for it. And that's what the evolutionists have done. And they found evidence that supports their theory. But
Yeah.
whatever your theory is, you're going to find, if you rule out all other causes, then you're going
Yeah.
to find some kind of
Yep.
explanation, right? And so
Hmm.
so that's
Yeah.
what struck me. And it's still working a
Yeah.
little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you can always reinterpret things to fit your worldview, whatever it is. We can look at the same exact piece of evidence, but come to different conclusions about it, because that's why we need to argue at that paradigm level, which is so great that Jay does, because most people don't. Most people, it's like they're just playing, chess, and they're not even questioning the board, the chairs, like the bigger picture of this is like, why are you doing this? When really that's what you should do. You should go to that absolute bedrock of their argument and go for that. Why would you grant them anything when
It was so
yeah.
just a couple. One of the things I saw was like this rationality rules guy talking
Yeah.
to Jonathan Pajot, and
Yeah.
he was talking about like how like his worldview was just so much more logical and obvious than
Yeah.
Jonathan Pajot's worldview. And then like he says like, yeah, like we're just primates, and we know
Yeah.
that we're like on this
Yeah.
rock that's flying around the sun
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
billions of years old. And Jonathan was like, oh really? Like is that like the most obvious thing to you, that you're a primate? Base like having like primary, it's
Yeah.
like Jonathan's perspective is just like, like I wake up in the morning and I get out of bed, like there's consciousness about like reality.
Yeah.
He doesn't need more assumptions than that really. Whereas this other guy, he has all these scientific theories that he thinks are just obvious, but he's actually resting on a long line of development of
Exactly.
thought. that he's not
Yeah.
even aware of and doesn't completely understand himself.
Yeah, no, I actually saw that stream. That was a really good stream, but it's just like they, the language that Jonathan Peugeot talks in versus the way that they're thinking, like they just, it's just so different that they can't see. Like, yeah, of course, no one thinks I'm a primate when I'm like, it's just a very weird way to approach the world.
Yeah.
But
Good. Well, Kyle, thanks so much for taking the time to have a conversation. Anything that you like to, I mean, I'll put the link for your your channel into the show. I highly recommend people to go check it out. Especially, I think you have a talent for pointing out the differences between the Catholic and the Orthodox Church. That's what I've seen a lot of
yeah.
on your channel. Maybe what are you personally wanting to dive into as well? You could maybe spend last minutes saying what are you working on at the moment, or where are things going?
Ooh, so I've got a lot of things planned. I want to continue to interview a lot of different people on the OrthoCast, and it's great because I am able to, hear these great stories, but then I'm also able to condense them into videos of like why Americans are converting to Orthodoxy. I've already made two parts. I plan to make part 3 and 4 and 5, and eventually, I mean, it's very sustainable what I'm doing, and so I'm very optimistic about just getting all these different testimonies of why Americans are converting to Orthodoxy, why cradle Orthodox are staying in the faith too. I think that's another important question, or another important thing that's going on is making sure that people are staying in the church. I also want to highlight Orthodoxy around the world, like how it's in Europe, in Australia. So I plan to continue to make the videos that I'm making, but I want to definitely be more mature and more. I feel like some of my old videos I was a little bit like obnoxious, and I maybe the word is a shit posting. Even though I don't think cussing is good, but it's just that's an accurate word of what my very very early videos were doing. Like I didn't have that many subscribers, so I was just like having fun, and then these huge channels would end up replying to my videos, and then I would get caught in this weird thing. So yeah, I'm just trying to find, I want to be a good example of Orthodox Christianity online. I want to give solid reasons for why you shouldn't be an atheist, why you shouldn't be a Muslim, why you shouldn't be Catholic, why you shouldn't do the Eastern religions. I want to keep collabing with other people like your channel, like Jay and David and lots of new channels. I mean, I see new channels popping up every day. There's this great new channel called Harmony that is producing this really well-made Orthodox like art story. It's an amazing channel, but it's just so great to see this growing community. I plan to keep highlighting why people are converting. I want to, keep highlighting also the flaws in other worldviews. And I also want to focus more on the future on giving like kind of practical life advice, because that's why I originally started YouTube, was my like minimalism channel. And I have a few videos on Kyle Orthodox about why you should stop playing video games, why you should go to college, why you should like motivational things. Like I think I like that's your approach too, is like positive things that young guys need to be doing. So yeah.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Kyle. And
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely love to keep up the conversation going. So yeah, I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Awesome. God bless.
And yeah.